Hi there, Malcolm here with my 91st Booktube video, and today I'll be bringing you March's wrap-up video. I managed 10 books this month, so let's get cracking. First up is Colony by Rob Grant. A man flees to space to survive and gets murdered, wakes up a bit later on as a head in a jar, and is apparently the only man that can save the day. Written by one of the creators of Red Dwarf, this one feels very much like Red Dwarf in nature, and I wouldn't have been surprised had we encountered certain members of Red Dwarf, but we don't. It's his own story, very silly, just like Red Dwarf. However, not as clever or as insightful as some of the other books I've read by Rob Grant. I had read it before, but I don't really remember it. It was worth reading. Next up with my book of the month, Bone Silence by Alistair Reynolds, book 3 of the Revenger trilogy. I've already done a video reviewing this one, so I'll leave a link to that below if you're interested to know what I thought of this. And after that, I then read one of many graphic novels. This was Star Wars X-Wing Rogue Squadron Masquerade. What the hell was that one about?
You can't remember what it was?
I can't remember what this was about at all.
Wasn't that good then?
I enjoyed it. It's just, I said number 4 stars. I just had a quick flick through this one. I really can't remember what this was about. The artwork is really nice, very clean, very clear. You can for the most part tell who is who, but the plot, I really can't remember it. Rogue Squadron had to go and do something somewhere. Somebody gets captured, there's an escape, there's a rescue. And it's all very fun and exhilarating, but apparently completely forgetful. I did enjoy it, and apparently I wrote down, buy it. Possibly because these are so hard to get hold of. After that, I then finished reading Elephant Adventure by Willard Price. I was reading that to my older son. In that one, Hal and Roger go and try and collect some elephants for their father's animal collection company, set back in the day where such a thing was a thing that you could do. It's all set in the fabled Mountains of the Moon, a place where stuff grows to be much bigger than it normally does, and is entirely fictional. And there they encounter some bad people up to bad stuff, thereby fulfilling the adventure part of the title. Now, this was the one I remember reading when I was about my son's age, and there are certain scenes that have stuck with me ever since, and certainly this one's a lot more grown up than its previous books. We both enjoyed it. We're on to the next book now, so worth reading. After that, I read Monster by Frank Peretti. This is billed as Christian fiction, but to be honest, I wouldn't say it's that much different to mainstream fiction. So, in this one, husband and wife go camping, and the wife is kidnapped by a thing. Meanwhile, there's an investigation into lots of deaths that have been killed by a thing. I won't give away spoilers, but the thing is very quickly identified in this one, because we see a lot of the story from the wife's point of view, as she is in the captivity of this particular thing. And what follows is a pretty decent thriller, as the husband is in law enforcement and he heads up the search and rescue party, while a simultaneous hunt for the bear goes on. Obviously it's not a bear, nobody believes it's a bear apart from the idiots who think it can only be a bear. While his friend goes on an investigation to find out more about these things. I really enjoyed this one. There was a slightly unsettling fear that it was going down the wrong direction at one point, in that the secret about what is really going on isn't revealed until right near the end. So you're led to believe one thing, but it's really something else. Standard practice in this sort of book. But I was beginning to fear that the double bluff wasn't going to come up and it was going to be the thing it was pretending it was going to be. So I'm being a bit vague, but spoilers. Thankfully, the double bluff did happen, and I was quite happy with that. Very satisfying ending. Worth reading. Next up, another graphic novel. Star Wars X-Wing Rogue Squadron Mandatory Retirement. The final one of the X-Wing Rogue Squadron series. And in this one, Sate Pistage, one of the now deceased Emperor's confidants, has taken the role of Emperor, but found the throne far too hot to handle and has tried to seek diplomatic immunity with the Republic. And of course the Imperials don't want this to happen, and the Alliance do, sort of. I mean, they're not a huge fan of the chap. And so there's quite an interesting build-up and a final battle over the life of this man, where both sides start wondering if the cost is actually worth it. This is the culmination of quite a solid series, where, at least for the last 3 books, it has been rather more consistent in terms of the characters. In the earlier books, the characters getting swapped out. But in this one, the relationships are developing, friendships are developing into romances, which obviously lead into some tragic deaths. You can't have 2 people getting together really happily, unless one of them drops dead in some way. The artwork is consistent with the previous one, nice and clean, and you can mostly tell who's who, so that's quite nice. Buy it. Next up, I was supposed to read Star Wars Dark Empire. However, I couldn't face it, so I read The Mask instead. If you've seen the film of the same name by Jim Carrey, or the animated TV series, you should already be reasonably familiar with The Mask. And for those who don't know, The Mask is a special artifact that when the wearer puts it on, they become this funky guy on the front cover. pretty much indestructible and capable of summoning any sort of object or weapon at their disposal, and pretty much causes chaos and anarchy, particularly if it falls in the wrong hands. In this case, the wrong hands is one Stanley Ipkiss, Jim Carrey's character from the film, but unlike the film, this guy goes on a murder rampage. There is a lot of bloody death in this one. As suitable for a character with a great big green head, the colours are vibrant and leap off the page, and the action is pretty intense. All the while, the mask is wisecracking and giving one-liners. In many ways, this is Dark Horse's answer to Deadpool. Although, unlike with Deadpool, this guy can conjure up objects. So be warned, if you like the movie, this is not the movie. This is very different. Yes, it's got Stanley Ipkiss and a lot of the similar characters, and it even has some of the same gags, particularly the balloon animal Tommy gun gag, and the scene when he visits the shady garage to seek retribution upon the two who have taken his car to bits. Except they get a much nicer comeuppance in the film than they do in the book. And the massive dance sequence with the police is instead a massive shootout with lots of death and blood. And for fans of the TV show, which is quite difficult to come across nowadays, the huge and indomitable Walter makes his presence known in here as well. Great stuff, but not for those who don't like blood. Booktastic. And after that, I enjoyed it so much, I then read Book 2, The Mask Returns. This was actually the first book I read initially. I had this for a long time before I found Book 1. And there you see further adventures of the Mask, featuring a lot of the surviving characters from the first book. But in this one, a member of one of the mafia gangs gets hold of it and decides to create his own turf war. And it's up to the survivors of the first book to stop him. So lots of gang violence in this one. Walter's still strutting his stuff. And again, full of really vibrant and glorious colours. And blood, don't forget the blood. Huge amounts of fun, booktastic. And after that, I then had to read The Mask Strikes Back, book 3 of the series. Isn't it great when you have all three? And this one directly follows what happened in book 2, except this time a group of 4 friends happen upon this mask, and the book is split into 4 sections where each of the friends tries the mask on and does their thing their way. Loosely tied together by those in the know trying to stop them, along with Walter. Slightly grittier artwork than before, and the colours don't quite leap off the page in the same way. And I'll say that Walter gets a lot of the better scenes in this one. Wasn't disappointing exactly, but a lot less bloody. I actually let my kids read this one, as 4 very different friends discover what it means to lose control. None of them got any aims on taking over the city or killing off rivals. One wants to be a musician, one wants to be a superhero, one's already smoked so much that his brain's not functioning properly anyway. But it's fun to revisit the Mask world and to see how it affects different people. Buy it. And finally, having read all those, I had no choice but to read Star Wars Dark Empire, arguably the story that the Disney trilogy stole. The Emperor's back. He wants to pour his essence into a Jedi, in this case Luke, though his sister Leia is just as handy. But unlike Disney, this is a really gripping and exciting tale that properly brings the Star Wars trilogy forward and full of really great ideas. Unfortunately, 2 things against this book, which is why it took me a little while to get back to it, having read it before, are the storytelling mechanics are a little dated. There are a lot of those square boxes giving you exposition. And the artwork and colour palette are so horrifically bad you want to rip your own eyes out. Now, but hidden behind all that is a brilliant story which sees the Emperor trying to reclaim his galaxy, but this time with Luke Skywalker in Darth Vader's position. Really interesting stuff, very cleverly done. Just horrific to read, but buy it. So there we go, 10 books in all, very successful. A lot of them were pretty big scores. Yes, a lot of graphic novels, but it's the lockdown and for some reason reading goes weird when you're all not allowed to go anywhere. So how are you finding your reading during this forced imprisonment? Are you in danger of running out of books, or have you got plenty to get for the going on with? Feel free to leave your comments down below, I'll go and check those out. But as always, if you have nothing nice to say, then please do keep to yourself. Thank you, and until next time, see you later.